Okay, so I want to continue with what I was doing last time, and so I want to. So we're thinking of a surface embedded in S4, and we think of the. I'll just call it now. Which is pi 2, which is really the function that takes x1 up to x5 and projects out the last 3 coordinates, which is x1, x2. And then we can get to f, the pi restricted to s as a function of s2. And we are interested in a situation where this is we want f to be a Morse 2 function. And I won't write down the definition again, but sort of by example, hopefully remind you how to think about this. And what I want to do actually, I think I'm going to succeed in presenting a proof, a second proof that every surface in S4 can be put into bridge trisected position using the language of Morse 2 functions. And I'm just going to start with massage. The example of the torus in R3 and how it is supposed to be the guide, part of the guide principle there. So I want to improve f, where to prove let's see what it really means at the end. Although I stated last time that's just sort of a series of conditions on a Morse 2 function, which I claimed would guarantee that the surface was in bridge trisected position. That's why I'm going to prove f. I won't write down the conditions again, but I want to prove f so that I want to prove f by isomorphism s, and so f will continue to be the restriction of pi to s, but s will move around. And so the way I want to prove it is there's a theorem that every not 3 or an S3 can be put into braid, can be made into a closure of braid. And I'm not going to write all that down. That's Alexander. And so if you have some, so what does being a braid mean? It means if you have a diagram or not. This. This does not look like a braided picture. Not what you want to do is there should be some points, some central axis, and as you traverse your knot, oh, this is such a many crossings. That's my problem. I know it would work too if I wanted to be a knot length, but length should be fine. So far, so good. The point is I wanted to spin monotonically around this axis, but this one doesn't. It turns back, and that's bad. And so this, all you really want, one way to say what it means to be in braid position is that when you draw its diagram, it's monotonically moving in one direction radially around that point. And this is bad, and then there's a trick to say, well, every time there's something bad, what you do is you just pull it over the other side. Okay, and I forget how to set that exactly right, but it's a relatively simple algorithm to put it into a braid position. In this case, you want to take this arc that goes from this one arc that goes the wrong way, and then flip it around. Yeah, that's roughly speaking all the algorithms, and then it's braided. Okay, so that's a method to but that's a method to put in braid position. I want to do something similar to the singular locus, or the image of the singular locus of this map. So I guess. So maybe all I want to say here is recall put on the lane in braid position by messing with the diagram. Right? And now we'll try to do the same thing for the singular locus. So, so you consider, I said that Z, and S, singular locus, the set of critical points, and we'll consider f of Z in R2. And I want to talk about how to orient f of Z, except it makes a little, here it's natural things in orientation of the knot. You could just as equivalent to an orientation, I mean, orientation of the diagram, right? Equivalent to an orientation of the diagram is a co-orientation, which is, you know, say, take the, you know, rotate clock or something. And it's more natural with the singular locus to talk about co-orienting. So I want the co-orienting a fundamental subset of R2 means just picking the normal direction, one way without the other. So we want to co-orient. I'm going to co-orient the, remember f of Z, sorry, f of, inside Z there's C, which is the cusp set. And then there's f of Z minus C, so Z minus C are the folds. And I'm going to co-orient the f of Z minus C as follows. The picture is it's a fold. It's just really two-dimensional, so we can really sort of draw pictures of what's going on. And there's a direction in which along that fold, there's one side of the fold where there's stuff, and the other side of the fold where there is. I mean, there may be other sheets running through, and I'll co-orient, which way do I want to co-orient again? It doesn't matter, but I'll co-orient this way. So we co-orient in the direction in which, so in other words, the local models, the local model is t comma x maps to t comma plus or minus x squared. And we're really co-orienting in the direction in which this is positive. Okay, so co-orient in the direction, in other words, which is like plus x squared. That's if you don't like pictures. Yeah. And so let's look at what happens in a cusp. So I mean, I may have some crazy. So I look at this singular locus and I may do all kinds of things. Well, some of these things I'll draw already. We'll see. Can't happen. But currently, all I've decided is there's some way to co-orient the singular locus. Remember, the singular locus is a curve with cusps. We'll see that some things I've drawn here are real already. Okay. So the question is, what happens to a cusp? So near a cusp. So let's draw the cusp this way. Remember, the cusp has the local model that we sort of, I think about cross sections. This is what's happening. It's a wrinkle. This is it's a little wrinkle in the cloth. And so what happens to the co-orientations? Well, you notice along this cusp, there's stuff down here, so the co-orientation points in, and along here, the co-orientation points up. And that's the local model, so therefore near the cusp, everything, co-orientation point. So I inward on both sides of the cusp. So that means that here, if I were to follow, that's good, that's orientation. This co-orientation has to be consistent, but now this is bad. That actually would never occur. So, any questions so far?
This works for non-orientable surfaces.
This has nothing to do with the surface, right? This is just about entirely locally near the fold. is it folding this way or is it folding this way? It's all this way. Just pointing in the direction in which the fold. So yes, everything I'm going to say is true for stresses.
So you can't have a fold along like a Mobius band.
Right. So a good question is, can you fold a Mobius band so that its core is the singular locus? That actually isn't. I'm not sure of the answer, but I don't think that's intrinsically problematic because again, I'm co-orienting in the image, not in the domain.
Okay.
And the domain, remember that I haven't really picked anything out because the domain, the tangent space to the singular set is like this, right? And I'm not really picking either direction. I mean, that direction is kind of like, it's two directions in the domain. Okay, any questions for that? So I want, so what I want to do, my goal, my first step in improving function F is I'm going to do a nice healthy S so that all of my arrows along the singular set point in towards the origin, some arbitrary central point in R2. So step one, make all co-locations towards so be a little quick talk about a few things, but so well, generically, I mean, this probably is not true usually, right? So generically, f of z has so it breaks into two parts. So good parts and bad parts, right? But the generic, what I mean is, and breaks are isolated. In other words, if you might have something like, here's the origin, here's your A. Initially, you might, for some crazy reason, have something like this. In which case, there's a whole section where it's neither good nor bad or something. But I want, of course, you wiggle back to by generic equation like that. Okay. And then there's this isolated set where it breaks from being good to bad. This is bad, this is good. So we're just going to deal with all the, there's one other thing, also can assume, let's see, I can actually assume that all cusps are good. And what it means for a cusp to be good is that be good for a cusp, just here's the origin, and here's a cusp. And we stand in both ways and visually. So that really means tangent to array, and good on both sides. So how do I do this? Well, in a ball, I just add a point. I just literally grab a ball in R4 where the cusp is. There's a point in R4 sphere with a piece of surface in the ball. I just rotate it. I just and drag everything else with me. I may screw everything else up terribly to do this, but I can just grab everything until the cusp faces the right way. So cusps aren't any problem. That's just local. Formally, I have a ball. I would put a ball coordinate chart around the cusp in which I have a local model that I liked, and then I would parameterize a sort of a collar neighborhood of a slightly larger ball, and I would perform an actual rotation, pre-compose of the rotation in R4, in the local coordinates inside, and then on that radial collar, I would do less and less of that rotation until I'm going to get anything outside. So next step. So now we're assuming the cusps are all good, and then just these sections that are back. So next thing we can do is, so that's sort of a generic step. This is for all part of step one. So next, so we have what I want to avoid next is like bad sections that go around a whole lot. So what I want to do is if you wiggle bad sections to break them up, maybe to break them into smaller bad sections. In other words, if this is all, so here's the origin, if this is all bad, and for some reason I don't feel confident to deal with that much badness all at once, I can simply replace it with, I just want to argue that whatever badness I have can be dealt with in small chunks, and that's just going to do. Just because I can, if I want to. And now I've got short sections of badness. There's about any number of different ways you might do it, but I just want to make my bad sections short. Okay, and now, now I get this right. Okay, and then no. So that's so now what I want to do is so we'll consider it a short bad section. This, if you like, can be achieved by post-composing with the isotopping in the range. They're a short bad section. I guess it could be two things. It could be like this, or three things. It could be like this. It could be like this, or it could be like this. And these are bad. And all right, so the move I want to do, that I want to use here, is the move we used in the torus of the swallowtail. Right. So in all cases, we're sort of assuming that the origin is something. So three. So I want to use use this. So introduce swallowtails, and again, the model for the swallowtail that I drew is meaning has now. See, now I'm going to draw it this way. That's right. So now I'm oriented this way. That's really the upside down like that. You want to, and that's where you lean down here and you make it go to. So really, if I'm just drawing the singular locus and not trying to indicate what's in front or behind, that produces this two new cusps. And what does it do to the co-orientation? Co-orientation was like that here, here, and it's up there, and it's back down here. So it's okay, and it's really long here, you have, and right in the middle, you do this. And of course, that I can do this in R3, so I can do it in R4, so I can do it in my local model by isotopies. So how do I want to? I want to use those to deal with this. Maybe I'll. Sure, hope I pull this off. I had some drawings of which ways to do this, and I was getting them all right. But let's get them all right again. Let's consider in each of these cases, which is I'll start. I'll withdraw all three cases. I think I want to put swallowtails at the corners in all three cases. So, in this case, remember the swallowtail is going to be on the inside of the, is going to be inward from the direction. So this will become, let me just put the swallowtail here. Let me draw the next one. And then this one. This is the easiest one to think about. And, oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't need to do this. Let me focus, so I'll call this case A. Sorry. I may not even need to do swallowtail. Sorry, A is easiest to deal with this, right? So case A, no swallowtail needed. It's easier than that. Oh, so I have this picture. And of course, it's important to remember that this is a very short section. There's probably nothing else crossing here, but there could be all kinds of other stuff happening here. But what I want to move this, I want to pull this across. I want to make this. Okay, so how do I make the argument that I can do that? This is motion. Pull across the origin. And so if you believe that, having done that, then if I can do that, then I can achieve goodness on that short section. Okay. So why can I do that? Well, let me not try to write a word, but try to use the spirit of it. What do I need in order to do this? I've got a surface embedded in R4 or S4. Well, it's just R4, and I'm trying to, and same like this, I'm trying to move it this way. And the main thing I have to worry about is, it's really this edge of it that I'm trying to move. And the main thing I have to worry about is running into other parts of the surface. Okay. So here's the surface embedded in R4, and I'm trying to get this. I'm trying to really, what I claim is what I need to find is a disk in R4. I need to find a disk that, well, what happens, we're going to call the shape, one of whose edges is this, the original full locus, and the other edge projects to this curve in the plane. So I need to pull it across that disk. Now, I've got other stuff running around, and other parts of surfaces. So if I just pick a random disk, we might have some trouble because a random disk and a random surface in 4 dimensions generically intersect points. And that's potentially bad. But I want to leave you to think about this a little bit. I claim that because I'm not fixing exactly what arc this is, I'm not fixing this arc in R4. I'm fixing the image of this arc in R2 as to where I'm trying to get to. I have choices about where it goes upstairs, so I'm a little more free than you might think if I just said, here's this arc, and here's this arc. I'm trying to find a disk that co-bound that's disjointed from everything else. If that were true, I would be trying to find something I wanted to complement or something locally, and that might be non-trivial. But I get to choose this path here, and I claim that you can find this. So I think you can find this. And there are various, what you can think about it in terms of like flow lines for a Morse function. There's lots of different ways to say that. So I don't go too much there. But that's the same, the real idea, the crucial lemma maybe you might prove, and I'll do this right, is to say that you can always pull backwards as much as you want, like ambient isotope in R4, you can pull backwards. You can move a fold against its, in the opposite direction of its co-orientation as much as you want by ambient isotope in R4. And so really, so then case, so I didn't do anything there. Let me do case C next. That's what I just erased the test. So I have this now. So here I really do want to introduce, let's start out here. So then introduce two solid tables, one from the side. Which means I'm doing exactly that, but over here on this piece. And so what does that do? That this is up and I'm trying to get next here. And now I'm going to use the same argument. I'm going to this entire section of closer. I'm going to do an entire section down to perturb this out a little bit. That's just a small perturbation, and then move this across. That's the tracks at least. And that again has the desired effect. Well, this cusp, I guess to be very careful, I should tilt that cusp a little bit so it's actually really tangent. So the point is I'm just moving this around. I'm tilting these cusps out a little bit so that they really are pointing in the right direction, and then moving everything across. But again, I'm going against the direction of that co-orientation. So I'm just pulling this. And the last one I think is a substitute, right? Any questions about what I did there? The cusp just is like the cusp just helps to break it up one more time. The point is, if you don't do the cusp and you try and pull this through, you'll get. If you did it without pulling through, you'll get something like this. Right, and cusp allows you to break that up. And then the last thing is, of course, there's really two of these depending on left and right, and they're the same. I think I just want to put the cusp over here, and then pull this. And two. And co-orientation is good. By the same way. So I've now succeeded in kind of braiding the singular locus around the origin. The only subtlety is precisely the things that I not wanted to which is finding this being pulled. So I maybe I wrote that to you. I feel like I'll watch it. I didn't think it through carefully enough. Try to write that down or talk to you guys in front of I mean, in general, you have to be careful about. So, I mean, maybe why might such things be an issue? So, the prototype example where such things might be an issue or something thinks about probably at some point if you're trying to move an embedded surface in R3. And let's say you have, so if you have an abstract surface and you have, the point is if you have an abstract surface and you have two saddles in the surface, you have a Morse function. You can make an argument that you can always switch the heights of the two saddles arbitrarily. So if you have two critical ones of the same index in respect to the Morse function, you can switch their heights. But if they're embedded, you may not be able to for the following reason. You can have nested saddles. So here's a saddle, and then inside it, there's another saddle. So if you're dealing with a surface embedded in R3, and you're trying to modify the Morse function on the surface obtained from projection, and your desire is to switch the heights of these two critical points, you're stuck if you're trying to do this by an isotope in R3 because they're nested inside each other. But I claim that with one more dimension available, you don't have that. So this is a codimension one phenomenon that causes a problem. So that's what we're not, I think we're not running into. But that, you have to make a careful argument that you're not running into such a problem. So now, so that was step one. So after step one, f of z is sort of graded around the origin. And now what I want to do, so here's the origin, and so we have around, and then some cusps, crossings, and you have more cusps, etc. And then we, of course, we make components to this. Something like that. And instead, this is just locally. There has to somewhere be some maybe of this. Like that. No, that can't happen. There has to be an outermost. What am I trying to do? Who think of this? Even very complicated things happening. So the next step, what I want to do is next we want step 2. We want, so then now this is the trisection. So we're going to draw the standard trisection of the R2 into 3 sectors. Generically, I assume that those lines don't run into any cusps. Remember, I label these sectors A1, A2, and A3. And one of my conditions that I've written down for the Morse-2 function was that when I look at each ray, I wanted the rays to be transverse to the folds, and I wanted the cusps to, and I wanted all the folds. I hope I said this. I might have omitted this from the condition of this co-orientation. At the moment, I have the co-orientation pointing in, right? Yeah, pointing towards the origin, and I have all the rays tangent to the cusp. But what I might have that I didn't like, what I wrote last time, here I have 2 cusps on the same arc in one sector. So you want each component, each best way to say it is each component of Z intersected with F inverse of AI to have at most one cusp. Well, that's just involves more swallowtails to fix that. So the point is, if I'm in so just solution for swallowtails and total. And total across the origin. Draw a local picture of that. So if I'm in one of my sectors, and I have component of my singular locus that has 2 cusps on it. Well, I just put a swallowtail here and modify this to draw. I'll draw 3 pictures, smaller, I guess. And that's how the cusp works, because this is folded this way, and then we pull that short section. Right, then I want to fold this a little more tricky. Sorry. I want to do this cusp. Actually, the best way to say it is bring it very, very close. Let's say it's like differently. So there's all kinds of other stuff here. Okay. And I want to, maybe that's, I'm just thinking carefully. So what I was going to say that is wrong is just pull this really close here. Okay. That's not wrong, but I'm being a little too quick to say that because I just asserted that I could move that way easily. Why can you move this way easily? Well, how might you get stuck moving this way? Well, there's two things that might happen. One thing that might happen is if you actually run, in terms of a little cross section here, if you actually run into, you're trying to push this past here, but there's actually the surface turns and folds the other way. But that doesn't happen anymore because that would have implied that we had a bad section there. So that doesn't happen. So if we start at this point and sort of follow the surface here, we definitely going to go all the way through. We're not going to try to double back at all. But then there's the ambient question. Achieving all this by an isotope R4, what you have to worry about is, do I run into some, is there something else there that gets stuck on? But again, one way to think about why that's not a problem is that if you sort of think in a little slice, I want to do this just in a neighborhood, nothing to write here, sorry for no takers. I want to move this very close to the origin. So I'm going to do it in the neighborhood of this ray. Okay. In the neighborhood of that ray, I just have a bunch of folds like this that are possibly obstructing this motion. Okay. But this is a crucial thing. We're in 4 dimensions ambiently. So sitting over this ray is 3-dimensional space, locally R3. And we're trying to move, and now, so in 3 dimensions, we're really just trying to move some stacked, basically looking at this as a copy of R2 sitting here locally. Then I've got just a bunch of stacked bridges, right? Arches coming down a little lower, and I can always move them past each other because I'm in the 3 dimension. In 3, they're co-dimension 2. And then I'm just doing that cross loop interval. So, correctly to make this argument, to sort of divide small isotopy or something, make things sort of, or by choosing coordinates, make things sort of t invariant, where t is this direction. So you then argue that you're really just doing this motion in one 3-dimensional plane and then crossing an eye and doing less as you move out in the direction. So therefore, you can get this to the point where that is very close to all that stuff. To the origin, past all that stuff. So stuff is crossing like that. And then right here, I've gotten very close. I'm going to put a swallowtail in that fits. And now everything's good. I didn't quite do the angle right, but anyway, everything points in, roughly speaking, towards the origin, but tilt a little bit this way towards the origin, and then coming towards the origin. And so I've succeeded basically I broke up this pair and we're on the same component I created lots more cusps, and I managed to get everything set. And I need to keep track of the trisecting. The point is that here you might say, oh, well, but there are 2 here, but that's okay because the green cuts. So they're really different sectors. And then that's I claim that's bridge trisecting position, although I also owe you now an argument that once you have it graded and no more than 1 cusp on each component in each sector, then you actually have a bridge trisection of the surface. And I'll try to make sure that so let's say Any questions? So the claim from last time that I entered here was that if f from that I s from s to r2 is shorthanded graded about the origin, or really it's f of z, but I'm just cut short the term graded about the origin with at most one cusp per component per sector, or per sector per component. Then if I define the saying that S4 S is B1 S1 B2 S2 B2 S3, where BI is F inverse of AI, pi inverse of AI, and SI is F inverse of AI. Then this is a bridge trisection. In other words, what I have to prove is that, so you take the inverse AIs or the three sectors 1 and 2, you take their images. First of all, I have to prove that their inverse images in S4 are 4 balls. Secondly, I have to prove that their inverse images in the surface are just discontinuous of disks, no topology at all, no homogeneous, and no holes. And then I'd have to prove that each of these SIs is boundary parallel in the BI. And the same thing for the pairwise intersect. Well, I also have to prove that these balls intersect pairwise in 3 balls. And so I don't know if I'll do all of that in 10 minutes, but I think I can do it. So let's see. Let's say the fact that the BI is 4 ball, that I'll just say is over by example. By analogy with low dimensions. And you can figure out how to write out coordinates. And the point is, if I take S2 and map it down with R2 by projection, and then trisect with R2. And upstairs, I have trisect next to this. And 3 sectors are balls, and then there's I don't know, it's like a suspension or double, whatever you call it, to go up in dimension. You're making more balls in high dimension. So you figure that out. I think the most interesting thing is initially, so what I want to show is that here I only get disks. And that's something, this argument is going to be useful also in dimension 4 when we're talking about trisections of 4. It's the same kind of. So to see that each SI, why is that true? So I'll just focus on one of these sectors. And so what do I see in one sector? Okay, one of my sectors is red and blue. And I look at my various just running across. That's what I see. Okay. That's the singular locus. The first thing I want to do is do a little, just looking at one sector alone, I want to do this isotope in domain and range, sorry, and make that into, I want to make the red and blue vertical. And then think of this. By the way, I can never have the outermost one can't have a cusp because there's nothing over here. And so if there's a cusp, there's always something part of that. You can think about that. But we have these cusps and so on. This. So now I claim, now what I want to do is project this. So remember, these are all point coordinates. Now I want to consider, so in this picture, I want to consider words again. I want to consider projection on the horizontal axis. So you write all this in coordinates carefully if you wanted to. And so, so you get at, I mean, basically what you have is you have SI mapping to here, which I reparameterize this way, and mapping to R, and you get out of this process another function, this is G, which is mapped to S I R. By first taking away from that F, then some reparameterization map, then horizontal projection. And the claim is that the critical points of S are precisely the vertical tangencies. Let's call this map F star, and it's like parameterization that precisely the vertical tangencies F star of this critical. So they precisely occur here, here, and here. Precisely the vertical tangencies there, and furthermore, and they are okay. I want to say that they're 0, and they are all index 0. Well, they're index 0 or 1, or this is a surface. That's right. Yeah. I think you're also narrative. Huh?
You're saying that's a Morse function?
It's that, and it's a Morse. Well, it's a Morse function. Yeah. So the vertical tangencies, if those vertical tangencies, it wouldn't be a Morse function if you did this. So sort of, and they're index 0, assuming that the vertical tangencies are themselves generic. Right? They're all like this. Well, you could have things like this, but we're going to rule them out. So they're all just like, they're all going to be like that. So the point is I can arrange, because everything's moving monotonically, every arc, and there's only one cusp in each arc. Because that's important, there's only one cusp in each arc. Then I can always take each one and just have one vertical tangency, which is our parabolic kind. And then there'll be index 0. The way you see they're index 0 is just by looking, at the local picture. It's basically that's a whole. Okay. Why is this not? You might wonder about the cusps, why they don't contribute. But remember, the local picture for the cusp, there's a direction, a t direction, which is mapped to t in the range. So therefore, there's at least one direction which the derivative is not 0 in that direction. So these don't contribute any critical points. So you've got this Morse function on a manifold, on two manifold. The two manifold has all of its boundary over here. You got this Morse function, and it's got, going this way, it's got only index 0 critical points. So it's got only poles. And there's nothing you can make out of that except a bunch of disks. So therefore, when the bowls face this way, it's true that some of the bowls have some funny wrinkles in them when you think about the vertical direction, but in the horizontal direction, there's nothing actually happening. And in particular, there's no separates. So you can't get any genus out of it. You can't get any extra punctures in it.
Does that tell you they're boundary parallel?
No. Well, this argument doesn't tell you that. To get that they're boundary parallel, what you have to do is cook this up a little, increase this a little more to talk about it. what you really need to just sort of think about horizontal slices of this picture and, maybe create it like vector fields to give you want to produce the isotop feature boundary. And to do that, it's more or less the same argument as I gave earlier about pushing things close to that point. It's sort of a similar argument. And you need to think, the best way to do it is creating like vector fields and so on, but I'm out of time. So maybe I'll save that now. That's